We will discuss and take possible action on 3 related topics. First, the department's global plan for juvenile detention facilities and the POC's pro and cons list about the plan. Commissioners will have an opportunity to discuss adding any recommendations they see fit. Second, the motion by Supervisor Lindsey Horvath set to go before the Board of Supervisors on March 18, 2025, titled Transparency in Planning During the Probation's Ongoing Crisis, that requires probation to go back before the board before implementing some aspects of the global plan. Finally, an update on the department's progress on compliance with Title 15 and the findings of unsuitability by BSCC at Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall. We will start with the global plan. I've asked the chief, or I've shared with the chief, that we are going to go straight into questions regarding the global plan, since many of us have had access to the video, have had access to the documentation, and hopefully in the questioning, we will get a more insightful look at it. So with that in mind, thank you for joining us, Chief. And if you just like to make an opening comment.
Good morning. Thank you for accommodating my schedule. It's appreciated. The global plan is one of the most significant components before probation and its partners. And so I appreciate the discussion and the feedback. And I'm happy to go straight into the questions. I would just like to say that the format that you all chose to present the pros and cons, extraordinarily helpful. I think it's the best starting point for conversation and to getting to the details so that folks know how this actually is operationalized in effect. So I really appreciate the POC having put that forward. Very helpful.
Thank you. Commissioners.
I don't want to go first. Yeah, I'll just start with my first question to kind of, as an icebreaker, right? So I mean, I was looking at the report, and I think when I think global, I think whole, I think holistic, and it felt like kind of one-dimensional for me. There was a lot of superficial elements. There's a lot of changing environments. There's a lot of moving young people around, but it seemed to still lack strategy in some ways, because it doesn't really address some of the other questions that I have about how you're addressing real rehabilitative needs and how you're preparing young people to come home. It just, for me, was lacking a lot of the, I guess my main question is, why is the plan so very focused on facility changes as much as it's focused on changes that help, like the young people, the rehabilitative stuff, the behavioral support, the programs, the services, things like that? Is it supposed to be more heavily leaning towards the cosmetic changes, like those types of things, rather than supporting the young people?
No, thank you for the question. So it is a facilities plan. Did I just mispronounce that? It's a facilities plan. So we say the global plan, but if you go back and look at the requirement for the department was to come up with a facilities plan for juvenile. So in essence, how are we going to use what is left? What population could we best serve? Do we need to build out? So you're right. What you're seeing is heavily focused on infrastructure, because that's what the plan that was called for was. We took the opportunity to say, in thinking of how we're going to use the facilities that we have, we want to have some underlying values and principles that we're just hinting at here. So for example, one of the things that we want to do is to better serve specific needs. So the plan doesn't go into what our future endeavors are going to be to do better needs assessments and to do dynamic assessments so that we know what programming to contract with. That's part of it, but you don't see it in here because it's a facilities plan. It's predicated on the notion that having smaller communities will best serve the youth that we have and will create an environment which they can be better prepared when they leave. All those values were taken into consideration to come up with this, but you're right that it doesn't have any of that meat on what are we actually doing, because it's actually a facilities plan. My hope was that after approval of this, that's when all of the meetings with everybody involved, meaning the other departments, private vendors that provide services, would actually help develop the specifics. This is heavily probation. This is probation. This is my vision for how we should use the facilities that we have for the population that we anticipate with the fiscal restraint that we have. It in no way represents how we would operationalize, because I wouldn't set to do that without input from everyone else. If I would have presented, we're going to use this modality and do this, it would have been completely prescriptive, and there would be very little room to get feedback and say, we think that the best thing. And so I was really trying to be sensitive to that, to say, it's not all filled in. That now goes to projects and work groups to jointly, because I wanted to get to this joint ownership component of filling that in. It didn't, I don't think that's how it was received. It was received as in, you haven't thought through any of those things, and why aren't you producing something that's a little bit more meaningful? When in reality, it was simply saying, we're not going to unilaterally do all the operational pieces, but the part that I am responsible for is for the facilities and the budget that we have and how we can utilize them.
So superficially, the plan just aims to do what's necessary, reconfigure the populations, move people around, update the settings so that you can reach compliance. Is that the primary objective?
Compliance is a strong component. It takes into consideration what staffing do we have, what are the compliance challenges that we have, and then we still have those values, which are we want a downward push for the population at LP. We want to be able to consolidate young people with like needs. We want to create an environment in which a population feels separate, and we want to be smarter about the contracts that we engage in for the services. Not every young person we have needs the same services. And we're in a situation now where it is difficult to provide adequate programming because we have a conglomeration of youth with needs and then trying to figure out how to establish a class for 3. What you end up doing is the wrong prescription. It's the wrong class for the wrong kid. And that really doesn't advance anything. So what this attempts to do is separate by mission the different facilities that we have so that then we can concentrate on those specific needs and contract for those services and better serve the young people that we have.
I get it. I mean, I understand and I appreciate how the plan in some way solicits some feedback, collaboration, all of those things. But I think you've gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of input about what stakeholders need in order to at least, you know, implement that and include it in the plan, right? I mean, because for me, that's the part that's most underwhelming. Like all of the other changes are fine. The infrastructural things, they make sense to me. And I think that there's some realignment or some alignment with Youth Justice Reimagined, but the other piece is severely lacking for me. And I was really looking forward to seeing more of that stuff so that we can see the correlation between your global plan and how it's improving public safety in some way, but it's completely disjointed for me. So, yeah.
Commissioner Meredith.
One of the things that's key to me is I'm looking at Camp Scudder as being a new training facility, which I wholeheartedly agree with, because I believe the current facility we have in Pico Rivera, we lease and don't own. And that's money that could be better utilized. Plus, I think, as it points out here, Scott and Scudder are more centrally located. So I just want you to know, I believe that, and I think we can do enhanced training, and what training is one of the issues that we've talked about in the past. So.
Appreciate that comment, and we've been listening to folks and acknowledge that what we are demanding of our staff, not just our officers, but also as we reimagine the teams that we want. It's not just probation officers, folks from other departments with other disciplines. And when we start thinking of what the new demands are for them or what we expect of them, we certainly can't get there without having a dedicated training center so that we can really dedicate sort of career-wide or lifelong learning for our folks. It's simply unfair to add expectations to them without adequate training and ongoing training.
A secondary question going through this, I know, and I looked at Supervisor Horvath most, and she refers to the military training program, which I don't think people really understand. It's not a military training program. It's, for those that don't know, it's called the Sunburst Academy. I'm very familiar with it because it's on the same base that I come out of on weekends. That is a voluntary program that really addresses at youth. Could you explain that a little bit further so the other commissioners might understand it better?
Yeah, what it's not is it's not a boot camp, so at all. And I encourage folks to take a look at the California Military Department and their various academies that have statewide. What it's actually focuses on the whole person and academics. And it's a very impressive program. We have one locally. I encourage folks to go visit. And what they're focused on is lifelong change. And they follow these young men and women afterward to make sure that it's not that they simply come for this period, advance in terms of their credits, but that they're actually connected to what is going to happen to them afterward. The most I can say is please visit one of these programs before you have an opinion on what it is, because it's not at all the focus on that military component, but rather how do you do wraparound services for young people? Very impressive.
No, that's what I was trying to get at it, because I read it, it says military program. I think people are going to think it's a boot camp when it's not. And it is voluntary. In fact, my familiarity with it is I deal with it about once a month. There was a youth out of South LA who the judge gave him the option to go to this program or go into custody. And he took the program. And after I talked to him, he goes, yeah, I'm getting ready to go register to go to El Camino College. And that was what inspired me when I was talking about this program. I think that I'm glad you're looking at it.
No, and thank you for that prompt. Essentially, again, voluntary. We already have youth that participate in these programs. As a matter of fact, it is an avenue for the courts to send them rather than them continuing an LP. That already occurs today. It's simply taking a model that is very successful but doesn't have capacity and bringing it to Los Angeles.
So if you bring that model to Los Angeles, is it going to be voluntary for the youth, or is it going to be where they're assigned?
It has to be voluntary.
So, and it would be voluntary for youth who are already detained, not for youth who are not detained?
Exactly.
No, I visited the areas, the environment, so I just wondered. Commissioner Kokani?
Thank you. I will just start from the top, I guess, and that's related to Barry J. and your desire to kind of turn that into the secure youth treatment facility. Have you been able to identify a cost related to building out your vision?
So I don't have a cost for you, but what I will tell you is that there's nothing in this global plan with respect to Los Padrinos or Nydorf that adds cost to what is already required due to a DOJ settlement on providing a home-like setting. What this is doing is it's being much more targeted in the types of communities that we have and making sure that since there's already going to be significant cost in turning these locations with home-like settings, that we're doing it in a smart way that is going to be sustainable for us to provide services for the types of youth that we have. So the reason you don't see a number here is because no additional money is being requested for the global plan specifically. These construction efforts have to take place at Nydorf anyway.
I hear what you're saying, but some things will, I get that there is a requirement to make these facilities more home-like. I know that the construction has been underway at Barry J before it was closed as a hall, to turn it more home-like, to change the color of the furniture, to brighten things up a bit, which probably is a cheaper investment, or I'm assuming it's a cheaper investment than building out the small homes or implementing this college academy or whatever it is that you're envisioning. So just understanding the difference between those costs would be helpful. As you said, there is a budgetary restraint. we will be facing a kind of restricted or a more restrictive budget. So I think it would be helpful to know, while there are dollars allocated, I think some things might cost more if you do them a certain way or might cost less if you do them another way. So it would be helpful to even know what that would cost versus what it is that's currently happening and how much that has cost. The other question I had was, if you turn Barry J into the only secure youth treatment facility, are you having the staff that's currently at Kilpatrick then relocate to Barry J? Is that the intention?
So those are all negotiable items. So these aren't things that are set out before a program moves forward.
It just feels like it's something that's important to consider, given that the Kilpatrick staff, from my understanding, works at a 56-hour work week. And staff at Barry J, I believe, works 8-hour shifts, 5 days a week. And if you are having all 100 plus young folks who are dispositioned to a secure youth treatment facility, knowing whether or not you have the staff to do that feels important, especially because, as you said, one of your intentions is to come into compliance with the BSCC. And given that staffing is the issue, just wondering how that will play into this.
Yeah, I don't know that can we go back to the numbers that you presented? Because the proposal here is essentially to potentially increase the population from where it is naturally today by 14 to 20 kids. It's not, I thought you said a higher number.
Well, how many kids are, I can look, how many kids are currently at Barry J and how many kids are currently at Kilpatrick?
So Kilpatrick has 14 to 20. That's the population that we're talking about adding. Nydorf already has expanded to the larger number of 80, or I mean, it's already there. So that there's no movement of a large group of SYTF.
But you're going to need more staff, right?
Right, but more staff for 14 is very different than more staff for 90 more. I just want to make very clear that we're talking about a sort of de minimis, the increase that we're talking about. That's first of all. Secondly, there's an assumption that every young person that otherwise would have been eligible for Kilpatrick will then remain. And that's just not the case. We have Pine Grove. We continue to have 2 contracts, one of them the Boys Republic. Those would be increased as well, so that there will still be other avenues for young folks to go to other step-down programs. So to answer your question more directly with respect to the staffing component, this isn't a big shift in staffing. I cannot answer that question because it is a negotiable item with the union to determine how staff will move or will not move or what type of schedules they would have.
What is the current, I guess, desired max capacity at Barry J? I feel like I've heard staff share a number, and I know that that isn't necessarily like the rated max capacity, but I think there was like a desired number that I had heard from staff at Barry J. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that number or if you've set that number.
So the global plan anticipates being able to provide services for around 100 at Nydorf between the various programs.
And the various programs being, again, just the regular SYTF
Yes.
and then the Sunburst Academy replication.
Yes.
Is that right? And will the Sunburst Academy replication be the only way young people can receive higher education at Barry J?
No. Every program will still be entitled to educational services.
So Mission College, is it Mission College that's currently at Barry J?
It might be.
Okay, so that will remain there.
This doesn't anticipate removal of any educational
Okay.
programs. Yeah.
And so are you considering, just as young folks have seen Kilpatrick as a step down, is your anticipation that this Sunburst Academy 2.0 will be seen as a step down? Is that like the replacement for what is being offered at Campus Kilpatrick?
Yeah, I think that we have to be much more clear with the young people that we have so that they can have more agency of what types of programs that they could step down into through behavior. we currently have, Kilpatrick is not the only program we have. Like I said, we have Boys Republic, and I don't think we do a great job, but it's not visible to them. So they almost count on either their public defender or an officer telling them that these things are available. So as part of the global plan, part of the intent is for SYTF youth who are typically with us for a longer period of time to know these are my options. I have some agency. And so that it would be potentially the step down Osprey or Sunburst Academy style. It would be the off-site contracted programs that would have. It would be Pine Grove. And even within the normal program, there should be step down due to behavior so that you still have more freedoms and, like I said, more agency, even within the normal program.
I guess what becomes of the LA model then that currently lives at Kilpatrick that has been built out really by the staff who have been there for a significant amount of time, who have kind of bought into that model and who have been able to replicate or create something very unique. Are we just doing away with that?
Oh, I hope that's brought over. I mean, we count on all of that staff that has built this on and they bring it over. Look, I need to be very clear here because I keep hearing folks say things like, do we not believe in what Kilpatrick has done? That's not the case. We have constraints here. I only have a certain number of facilities and we need to make the best use of them. Kilpatrick is a fantastic program. It can only serve a very small group of young people and we have a greater population. So nothing in this plan says that Kilpatrick isn't a good program, that we don't appreciate. It's really the staff there, the interactions that they have with the young people. We want to bring that over. We want that to be the norm for all of our SYTF population. And if I had more locations, if we still had 18 camps that we could utilize, the global facilities plan would look very different. But the truth of the matter is, what is listed here is all that is available. And we just can't continue using an entire facility for just 14, 15, or 16 young people.
I imagine if it was that easy to replicate the LA model, we would have already done so. I think I've heard that the capacity at Kilpatrick was limited to whatever it was, like 20 young folks because of the staff kind of quarters where staff sleep related to the 56-hour work week. So would that not remain an issue? Like, would we somehow be able to increase the population just because it's no longer SYTF youth at Kilpatrick? Or will the staffing quarters remain an issue?
I've heard that a lot, that the reason for the low population is because of staffing. And I've heard that it's because of staffing sleeping quarters. Mm-hmm. That's not the only consideration for the population remaining low there.
I mean, it's your department that has reported that that's the rate limiting factor, that and plumbing. So you're saying that's no longer an issue? Or then what is it that limits Kilpatrick's kind of ability to serve more young people as it currently stands? Like, why do we only have 14 to 20 SYTF youth there?
Can I address something on that?
Sure.
Part of the problem we have is there's a group of city councils out there and the supervisor's office that do not want that to grow any larger than it's at. And one of my neighbors happens to be a representative for one of those councils out there and says that they would go after CEQA or anything else they could do if we try to expand that footprint. So it makes it very limiting and difficult for the chief to answer, so I can answer it.
if you're going to move them, what number do you anticipate in the future will be served at Kilpatrick with the global plan?
So the global plan essentially caps it at 50 young women at Kilpatrick.
What was that?
50.
Okay. Okay. How many young folks do you, if you can tell me, do you have currently at Pine Grove? Sorry, what was the other step down? Boys Republic. Were there any other kind of external step downs that you had named
Yeah,
that you have
there's one.
contracts with?
I don't have that number in front of me. We could send it to you.
Okay. And then I wanted to move to, sorry, your proposal to, or your desire to close Central. We're not actually permanently closing it, right? Your desire is to still keep it open so that it, in the event of an emergency, you can use it. Is that right?
Not exactly. Thanks for the opportunity to clarify. So Central already is not a location where we can house youth. We're using it sort of an outpatient basis because we have some medical equipment there. That is already in the process of being moved closer to the youth, which is part of this, so that we can provide more timely services. What you may have read in here with respect to emergency is just my call out saying that anything in our real estate portfolio should have a warm shutdown in an acknowledgement that we have a number of natural disasters. So it's not that it would be maintained as a juvenile hall for use. It's simply sort of a secure area like anyone that we have left in the event that we have to use it for.
Do you have a dollar amount that will be spent to maintain the facility so that it is only warmly closed and not, I don't know what the end, coldly closed?
I like that word. No, I don't.
Because I recall when LP was not housing young people, there was still a fairly high dollar amount that was associated with maintaining it. So it would be good to have that number because the global plan, I think, in my opinion, it's not just a facilities shuffle, but it should correlate with also like a price reduction in how much we're spending. And it's not clear. I guess I'm just not seeing that in this plan.
There's nothing in this plan that purports that this plan reduces the budget of probation.
Right. I'm just saying that I think it should. And so again, then in warmly closing Central, there's really no other use for it. There's no other use that there's no other way to use this facility. Is that right? Like it would still kind of have to exist as a potential facility in the event of an emergency. So
No, not exactly. I mean, it's still part of the larger county real estate portfolio. And there may be other departments or other desires by the Board of Supervisors to use it for something else. I mean, even LP, when it was vacated, was utilized for other services in the absence of having youth there.
I mean, it was used for a program for pregnant and parenting teens for a very brief moment. And I think at max it had like 7 or 8 young people. So it still needed to largely be available, or it seemed like it was largely still available for probation's needs.
No, I guess what I'm saying is that that's a larger county question on the utilization of the site, not simply probation.
So then if the county were to decide to use it for something else, then you would not then have an emergency facility?
And we would have whatever else is remaining in the portfolio, right?
Which, according to the global plan, is nothing.
I'm sorry, say that again.
According to the global plan, there is no other facility in the portfolio. Every other facility you're using.
Yeah, Yes, I mean, there's still, Challenger is still within our portfolio.
Okay.
Commissioner Kokani, if I may, I was going to give the other commissioners an
Yes.
opportunity to ask questions and then maybe move to public comment so they get a little share of the time and then return to the commissioners. So if there's any other commissioner, Commissioner Brooke, followed by Commissioner Jackson.
Harris.
Harris, so sorry.
It's all good. Good morning, or good afternoon, Chief. I have a few follow-up questions. I'm going to start by saying that, it feels like we've lost this battle, not just in Los Angeles County, but statewide. When DJJ was anticipated to be closed, you reference home-like environments, but, juvenile halls are the opposite of home-like environments that are referenced in that statute. There is just no way around it. And every single county has chosen to put their SYTF into a juvenile hall, which are probably the least therapeutic juvenile facilities available to young people. And so your proposal is to shut down the shining star of your department that is functioning well, where staff are contributing to the rehabilitation and preparation of young people to leave a locked facility and to go back into the community, to remain safe, to contribute to, achieve what goals they have and to achieve, the common goal of public safety. That's what's happening at Campus Kilpatrick right now. And the proposal is to shut that down and to move young people back to a notoriously difficult and beleaguered facility that is, it's called the compound for a reason, right? And I see that part of your plan is to build tiny homes and, designing an SYTF small community. But that just feels impossible. It feels impossible with, what we know about the facility, what we know about, the reason, and I've recently been to Kilpatrick, to Dorothy Kirby, because I really wanted to understand how you laid this out, right? And I think that it's really best understood if you go to these places. And well, let me ask you a question about a specific thing. So Sunburst Academy, who does that currently service? Is it high school students or college students? Is Sunburst Academy an actual college program?
High school.
Okay. So why is the Barry J. Neidorf College Academy being proposed with a high school program instead of with a community college or a four-year university?
It's simply, I think you're right. So the educational assessment would take into account what the cohort could do, right? Because you have to establish who the educational component. And I think you're right. I think that because it would be at Neidorf, I think in likelihood it would turn out to be a 13th year or a community college program. I think that's a pointed assessment that would likely change to that. It's referenced there in that manner because that's the current model. But it would be negotiated according to the population that we have and their educational needs. And again, I think you're right. We have more graduates there, so it would have to shift.
I mean, what about, have you contemplated furloughs to actual community colleges where young people are with their peers and understand what it's like to be on a college campus and engage with their professors face to face? An experience that, some of us in the room have had, and to actually prepare them, if they want to pursue college or further education when they get out, to know what it's like to go onto a campus. Have you contemplated that as part of this model of, building the SYTF small community?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, this is a facilities global plan for the folks that are the courts sent to us to be housed in an SYTF facility. There are other programs that probation should continue to explore along with DYD and JCOD to keep more young people from entering our system and to keep them from coming back to the system. We don't do enough there. And I think that the county has made a significant investment in 2 other departments to assist in that area because probation needs the assistance. That doesn't replace my mandate to house young people that are sent to us by the judiciary. And I think that a lot of the conversation that is sent my way and probation's way is really, it's the wrong venue. I don't make those determinations. And I'm asked consistently why I would choose to put somebody in. That really is advocacy for the judiciary. And if there are any suggestions for them to make decisions, to make other determinations, they're welcome. I still have the responsibility for the population that we have and that is anticipated to have somewhere to house them and to do a better job. By the way, the purpose of the Facilities Global Plan begins with an acknowledgement that we have to do a better job at providing for the young people that we have. Always open to suggestions. And for example, I keep waiting for some entity or folks that are in the network of care to come back with other suggestions on how to use the facilities we have. I'm open to that. I have extreme limitations. We're trying to propose to do the best with what we have. Kilpatrick in particular, like I said before, I have a responsibility for all of the young people that we have. And it is insufficient to say we're doing a good job for this very small group. And so I can't use the facility or the resources that we have. No, the answer is what they are being afforded needs to be afforded to all of the young people that we have. I get the defensiveness to continue the Kilpatrick, but what I'm telling you is for a system this size to say, from the limited resources that you have, don't touch this, just isn't right. We also have to be honest with each other. The young people that we have at Kilpatrick earned their way there. They earned their way there. It is absolutely true. One of the reasons Kilpatrick works so well is because we already know that the young people that are going there have proven that they should be in a different environment because they can be trusted, they're a bit more responsible. We don't want to take that away from them. And at no point have I said, look, this would be done tomorrow and all of them would be pulled up and they would have to go to Nydorf. Very sensitive to the fact that once someone has reached there, we want to do this in a very smart way to make sure, some of them will be ready to leave custody. But what I am saying is that the strength of the staff that we have there, the fact that the environment is conducive for more rehabilitative sort of structure, that has to be replicated, and we have to use that for all the SYTF, not just for 15.
I agree with you. I think that all youth should be given a different SYTF program. I think we just disagree probably very fundamentally where that can be accomplished. Let's talk about Kilpatrick and the proposed plan for moving girls and gender nonconforming youth there. I have a number of questions for you. I'm going to start by asking, you're proposing to increase the current population that's housed at Kilpatrick by at least double, almost triple. Commissioner Meredith referenced a political issue, but do you anticipate that those political issues will dissipate when this proposal, if this proposal goes through, when you're basically tripling the population of probation youth at that facility?
And just to piggyback on that too, how does that dovetail with the county's effort to decarcerate girls? It looks like you're going to provide a landing spot that people can justify for more incarceration of girls.
Yeah, that doesn't sit as true with me. And none of this proposal says I want to expand the number of beds I have so that I can have more young people in custody. Not at all. You don't see that anywhere in here. I have to prognosticate how many, according to the last 2 years, are brought to us for serious and violent offenses, but none of this says I want an expansion. Not at all. This doesn't replace any efforts to keep young people from being inside, period. That's parallel to this. This is a response to what I think everybody here says, which is You need to provide more specific and adequate services for young women and non-conforming youth. That's the charge here. I've proposed how to do that. And what would be helpful is, again, I'm putting this offer out to anybody that cares about our population. Okay, you don't think this is the best way to do it. I would love to hear recommendations are. For example, if you were to come back and say, no, we think it's Dorothy Kirby, and this is the list of reasons why I think that would be a safe environment to do it. That would be helpful. But all really the response to the global plan is, look, I think that there shouldn't be young girls in custody in LA County. That is not a reality that I can go to work with when judges for serious and violent offenses still charge me with housing young women. So, but I'm open to suggestions on, I don't think you've hit the mark here. These are the reasons why, but I have a suggestion. Otherwise, we have to move forward and do better than housing them where they are today.
How do the experts have conversations with you? There are a number of experts in this room from community-based organizations who have developed community housing programs, who have developed credible messenger programs, who are engaged in credible messengering and, you know, have ideas on how this works. How do they have those conversations with you? How do you propose to listen to the experts and have these conversations?
So if this global plan is approved, the next step is those work groups that are exactly what you're saying, to come back and say, look, this is the best way to do it. This is we do have experts engaged, for example, in this component, but we need to hear from folks that are local and that actually interact with our young people. What I will say is that what I always ask is, we may differ on some elements, but if we begin with we're dissatisfied where our young girls are today. We're dissatisfied where they are and the services are being provided. We agree with that. I'm asking for assistance in developing the best possible alternative that we have, but short of coming to a probation department and saying, the only thing I want to talk about is not having any young women in custody. That doesn't leave a lot of room for discussion, because I'm charged legally by the courts to house young women while they're pending those cases. So there's room for discussion on how to reduce population. There's room for, but I just want to be very blunt on, I hope the conversation is most useful if there's some assistance for today's reality, which is I still have to house some young women.
So during the order to show cause hearings, the department has adamantly indicated that they cannot move pre-dispo kids to a camp location. This global plan has 29 pre-dispo girls being moved to Camp Kilpatrick to sit along 22 dispo girls. So why is that possible? And the current, especially with the idea that we're going to close Page, why isn't it possible to move pre-dispo boys that are doing well to Page?
Yeah, I think it's a misunderstanding on what it would do. It would change what the facility is. We would have to seek approval from BSCC to change what the facility is. That's why.
So if we can move to public comment and then we'll return. Wendy, do we have any public comment, written or live?
Yes, we have a number of written public comments that are attached to the agenda, and I see lots of people standing up to speak in the room. I'm not going to cut you off, so if you don't want to actually stand, you can sit down and then get up later. And then if you want to use your little raise your hand function on the WebEx, click it and you'll get in line. If you're calling, dial *3. We're going to do 2 minutes and you can begin.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Derek Miller. I'm an advocate for the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and I completely agree with Ms. Brooke Harris. I was incarcerated for 2 years. I've been a Central Selmar LP in Camp Kilpatrick, and I honestly feel like if it wasn't for my staff at Kilpatrick, I wouldn't be where I am today. I'm currently in college. I'm an honorable dean student. I'm on this list every semester. I have a 3.75 GPA. And honestly, I honestly feel like if it weren't for my staff, I wouldn't have built the work ethic and want to actually change my life. So I want to give a huge shout out to my staff at Kilpatrick, and thank you for having me today.
Thanks, Mr. Miller.
Sorry, I'm short. Good afternoon. My name is Tasha Daniels. I'm a formerly incarcerated system-impacted youth, and now I work with the Young Women's Freedom Center as a youth organizer. Once again, we're seeing probation fail our youth, trying to place them in facilities designed for boys. By calling Kilpatrick a home-like environment is misleading and harmful. There is nothing home-like about incarceration, period. Moving young people like they're the problem is heartbreaking and can affect their mental health. By being moved far from families and community is saddening, and it breaks my heart. They are not burdens. They are children of communities who deserve care and dignity. Placing young women and gender-expansive youth in a facility staffed mostly by men creates real risk of sexualization and discomfort. Even by having to roll up their pants at night is humiliating and reopens wounds we are trying to heal. Kilpatrick open environment exposes youth to harm, abuse, bullying, and gladiator-style fights. This isn't care. This is not rehabilitation. Our youth need real support, consistent, compassionate care that helps them heal and build a future. These are children of today's community, and we need to help.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Deanna Pittman. I'm a program manager with the Young Women's Freedom Center in downtown LA. We are a leadership and advocacy organization that works with trans youth, with gender expansive youth, and young girls that are re-entering society after incarceration. First and foremost, I'd like to thank y'all for talking about this global plan, because we're extremely concerned about what can happen if this plan is actually implemented. Specifically, we're super worried about the proposal to move all girls to Camp Kilpatrick. The BOS promised that we were going to be moving towards decarceration by this year. It's 2025, and now we're talking about solidifying and cementing the incarceration of girls and gender expansive youth. In the pro and con list that y'all created, it was mentioned that a pro to moving the girls to Kilpatrick is that they'll have a dedicated facility for girls and gender expansive youth that can lead to improved programming options and focusing on girls' needs. We know that this isn't true. The diverse population is cited as being relatively small, but we should also note that it's been steadily rising in the past few months. And the folks that are currently incarcerated, their needs are complex, and they're so different. So we're fearful of the outcomes of putting youth that are in different ages, different dispositions, different levels of maturity and mental health needs, all in the same facility. What we really should be doing is putting our time, our energy, and our resources into decarceration and finding the girls and gender expansive youth who can come home today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is James. I'm with the Youth ARC Coalition. Now that we got the chief here, I just want to comment on what this man said. Nieto, I think that's your name. I just want to address that staff aggression towards youth is. I totally disagree with you, man. Respectfully, I firsthand actually experienced it. I actually witnessed one of your staff actually punch a minor because he got mad because of the comments and what he was saying. And I actually tried to de-escalate this situation, and your staff actually headbutted me and broke my nose. And it actually took 4 days for me to actually go to the hospital. And then during that time, they said they couldn't actually break my nose. They had to re-break my nose. And they said if I wanted to do it, it would basically be like the same pain I felt when the nose was broken. I was actually in the medical mod for 4 days with a swollen nose, and I really couldn't even feel my nose, to be honest. And I had actually problems breathing and stuff. But I just want to disagree with the comments you said that staff aggression on youth does not happen like assault. I just disagree. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Hello, I'm Thomas Bell, Camp Vice President for Local 685. First and foremost, with the global plan, I'm gonna have to disagree and say closing Camp Page, Chief, is a bad idea. It lowers First of all, it would take longer for people to come out of LP because now there's only 2 camps open. It would increase the numbers at the other camps as well. Right now, we're doing a good job. We're getting to know the kids. We're getting them their mental health. We're getting their programs. You increase the numbers. Now we got more kids who want to do that program, but they're not able to. Versus if they're at Page, they're able to participate in the programs as well. You got mental health that goes to both camps. If everybody's jammed up into one camp, they're not going to be able to reach everybody as well as they are when they go to 2. Because when we close camps, they feel, okay, we're going to lower our numbers too. So it's going to affect everybody in a way. Not to mention the officers that work at Camp Page, they're going to feel the same way. They're going to retire pretty much. A lot of them are going to retire. Some of them, are afraid that they're going to end up in LP. As far as Kilpatrick is concerned, so, just end it with, we need to keep Camp Page open and work with something. As far as Kilpatrick, I think everybody agrees that we need to make sure that we keep it as is. I don't agree with sending the girls over, but I also hear you when you say come up with ideas. So I'm all for Mr. Mundo, an idea. How about you grab 4 of your commissioners? I'll grab 4 of my union exec board members. You go manager with 4. We all sit down, we come up with an idea, and we can give it to them. I'm down with doing that. It's 2 different ideas. I would like for at least one of them to be either Ms. Kanani or Ms. Harris. Just throw that in there. But thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Evelyn. I'm a youth organizer with the Young Women's Freedom Center. I'm 18 years old and system impacted. I'm here today to actually consider decarceration as a recommendation for the girls and gender expansive youth in LP and DKC. Girls and gender expansive youth in facilities are dealing with and being affected by limited resources such as understaffing, lack of mental health support, and access to medical care. The girls in these facilities' needs are not being met. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Hello, my name is Tara Shakur, and I represent the Youth Justice Coalition. In honor of Women's History Month, I want to share a powerful quote by Audre Lorde: "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." This quote resonates as we see disturbing plans by Probation's global plan to turn youth camps into training centers for probation officers. This decision is sickening. It reinforces a broken system rather than addressing its failures. Furthermore, the chief's history of evading accountability and missing crucial meetings, such as POC meetings and Board of Supervisors sessions, shows a pattern of neglect. If a young person misses courts, they're arrested. If a mother misses court, her children are taken from her. But when those in power fail to show up, there are no consequences. This Women's History Month, I urge us to demand the same accountability for probation officers as we do for mothers and youth who have far fewer resources. Let's stand for justice and fairness for all. Also, just had to add this in because if I was a young person and you gave me the option to go to camps or military training, it's still both horrible options. Neither one makes sense. It's like putting a kid between a rock and a hard place. Both toxic. You don't know what you're doing. Please stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lupita and my pronouns are she, her. I'm here representing the Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition, a statewide network of sisters who have been directly impacted by incarceration, foster care, immigration, and other systems that criminalize and control us. We survive violence and trauma, and we're committed to ensuring our voices are heard in decisions that affect our lives and our communities we belong to. I'm here today to express my concerns about the global plan for placing youth in facilities described as having a home-like environment. This is contradiction when we talk about jails. There is nothing home-like about it. We need to reimagine justice and create real step-down facilities that are truly reflecting a safe and nurturing and home-like environment. Let's not forget the $4 billion lawsuit related to sexual abuse at LA's county juvenile halls and camps. We fear that youth, particularly in facilities designed for boys and primarily staffed by men are vulnerable to be sexualized or at the very least made to feel uncomfortable. The practice of having youth take off their pants and roll them up at the end of their bed is degrading and potentially triggering for those with histories of abuse. True justice would mean shrinking the department, especially when it's facing 30 indictments connected to 69 gladiator-style fights, harming 143 kids in a safe. It's safe to assume that these numbers are just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I like that, folks. I'm Devontre Farmer. I'm here with YJC to resolve the problems with the lack of transparency and accountability from the probation department, especially like regarding the treatment that the youth are getting in there. Here, bro, I don't need that. Off the back, that speech shit. Yeah, but like the treatment that the youth is getting in there, I was currently incarcerated from youth, juveniles to county jail to prison. And the juvenile centers, it just leads you to county jail. It's going to lead you to that. The probation, especially, because they're going to violate you. I'm dealing with this as we speak right now on parole, my probation officer. They're going to violate you, find any little thing to violate you. And even if you're working, whatever you're doing good, they're going to find bad in what you're doing. And it's the same cycles throughout all the years. And if we're coming with alternatives, rather than like reentry programs such as YJC, RAC, like come on, like ARC, yeah, like all that, like we're giving y'all the answers and you don't have the answers. Y'all don't have the answers and y'all looking for them, but it's in y'all face. So come correct, focus up.
Thanks, Demontre.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Jackson. I'm here with the Youth Justice Coalition. I'm here to demand full transparency in this facility plan. The county and the public must be able to see a detailed budget for all proposed changes to population and facilities. Year after year, we see the money wasted on cosmetic improvements, making facilities look better instead of investing in real change. Meanwhile, we're told there's no funding for critical programming and services inside these spaces. How is it that possible when the probation budget has increased every year? Wait, I'm trying to figure that out. If this is truly about supporting our youth, then why is the community being kept in the dark about how much is being spent? Where is the money going? We want the Los Angeles County to remain committed to the Youth Justice Reimagined Plan and to continue shrinking the probation budget. We've seen firsthand how funds are misused. Just look at the past attempts, like when LA County tried to build a $3.5 billion women jail on toxic land. Without community organizing, that jail would have been built and women would have been incarcerated there today. And on that same toxic land, they would have been dying. They would have been dying having their babies. They don't care about us. In August 2019, the board ultimately canceled the plan to build the so-called mental health treatment center, which would have been another jail disguised as care. We know that jails are not the answer to mental health needs or community safety. This plan must include full budget transparency for all proposed budget. The public has the right to see where the money is going. And you talked about young people earn their way into jails. That's interesting. Did you earn your way in this position? Because you're failing.
All right. Hello, my name is Jeffrey Hines. I represent Youth Justice Coalition. I have been in the field of youth development going on 8 years. I've worked with over hundreds of students, similar ones that have been on probation cases. And I have seen a change in the youth by just meeting their basic needs. If you listen to the youth, they will tell you what it is that they need. You have to create a safe space for them. If there's constantly something looming over their head, they're always going to be in fear and not want to ask for the help that they actually need. The community has been here telling you what the youth need because we've been going to the youth and asking them what it is that they need. There's been a plan that's been given to you, and it's been 5 years. And I just wonder, have you ever opened it up at any point in time and took a look at it? You could use all of the lingo that you think that, we want to hear today. that you care. But in all actuality, you've never cared about the youth because all they are is a dollar sign that adds to your paycheck. You're not here for rehabilitation. You're here to create more criminals. And we've been saying this for years. And we keep having to come back up here and say the same thing to you. The community has the answers because we are the ones actually dealing with them, because we actually care about them, because they come for our houses, our homes, our families. They listen to us. They trust us. They don't trust you. So give them back to the community that loves them and trusts them and wants to see the best from them. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, my name is Roberto Luca, and I am the Executive Director of RAMP. RAMP is the Restorative Academic Mentorship Program. We are a LRP. We're located in the San Fernando Valley. We've been working with youth coming out from the course for the SYTF population for about 1.5 years now. And it's been a struggle. It's been difficult. I am happy to say, and I want to give Mr. Eric Riley from Probation a shout out because he has stepped up with the rest of the LRPs, and we are making some improvements to the care that's being provided and more supportive funding. What I wanted to say is, I think, as you can see, communities here, we're here, and we should be part of the conversation. I think sometimes probation, commissioners, and other stakeholders forget that there is a voice, there is a community that wants to be part of the solution. And like, it would have been amazing if probation, for example, could have led with said, hey, we're going to create a global plan. Why don't we include community's voice in this plan? So that's just the way I see of moving towards resolution. And the last thing that I would say is that I also stand before you here as someone who has been rehabilitative. I was arrested at the age of 16. I did 28 years of incarceration. Since my release in 2017, I have worked for the Amity Foundation. I have worked for ARC. I was part of the board of commissioners at the BSCC who actually worked on revising the Title 15 for the new SYTF facilities. And the hope in that and at the BSCC was that these facilities would be constructed anew and not from old facilities to look and still be the same. So thank you.
Thank you, Roberto.
Good afternoon. My name is Erasmo Reyes. I am also one of the co-founders of RAMP LA. I am here as a father, a husband, a community member. I was in Central KNL with Roberto Luca in 1988, along with another friend of mine named Joel Aguilar, who did 22 years on a life without sentence. Some of you guys here are educated. My education was in the early 90s at CSP Corcoran in the SHU program, where we were forced to go out and fight for our lives. I later went on to Pelican Bay to the SHU program there, got out at age 30. I have 7 children. I've been married for 21 years. I own a real estate development company. Man, I'm pretty emotional because I'm here as a community member. A lot of people should put their money where their mouth is. As a community member, I've chosen to put my money where my mouth is. We have 3 homes in the San Fernando Valley. Some beds are vacant, because some people are prideful in the powers that be, the stakeholders, for whatever reason. We should be allowed to speak. We got plenty of people that are within our organization that not only have the lived experience, but have the academia behind them that can really make a generous contribution to the problem at hand. Let us in. We're ready to work. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Hello, my name is Emily, and I am a youth organizer at the Young Women's Freedom Center. I am 23 years old and formerly in system impacted. I am here today to discuss about the pros and cons that POC released. One of the pros claimed that one of the reasons to move girls to the camp is because the facility is more home-like and comfortable, when in reality, the environment is far from home-like and comfortable. Instead, it's a jail-like environment. And wherever they feel comfortable and safe, with resources from community programs to increase their opportunities. The con that impacted me and is astonished is that CBK was built for and has only served boys and young men since reopening after a $48 million investment in 2017, which is extremely frustrating and unsettling, especially when that $48 million could have gone into education, housing, or other resources to move girls and communities, resources and programs. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Emily.
Good afternoon. My name is Isabella Solomon, and I am a fellow with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I would like to just throw a thought out there. How about allocating more of the budget to expand Kilpatrick, as it has proven to be highly effective? Investing in its growth and further development would allow more youth to benefit from its success. I also want to acknowledge the unity I've witnessed today between probation staff, advocates, and the youth present here today. Something that isn't seen in this space too often. It demonstrates that we all share the same goals, but also at this point frustrations. While I understand that each youth has unique needs, like the chief stated, I believe that building a foundation rooted in respect, care, stability, and safety for both staff and youth will allow us to more effectively address those individual needs and guide them towards positive outcomes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dominique Davis. I'm the site director at the Young Women's Freedom Center. I'm specifically speaking to you, Mr. Probation man, chief. So we know the facilities are not the problem. This global plan is yet another round of musical chairs with these young people and the staff. You say you want expert input, but never ask for input from your staff, from the experts of this commission, or the community partners in this room. From my time in 2007, 2008, and 2009 till now, LP looks exactly the same. How many of your predecessors promised revamped, more humane, holistic facilities? And things have not changed. When will you stop these games and truly come to the table with the community for solutions rather than empty statements here? We are here. The experts are willing to talk if you're willing to listen. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Josh Green. I'm an appointed member of the JJCC and the JJRBG. And if it's helpful to offer some context from my experience over the last 5 years in those spaces, just quickly on the question of Kilpatrick's capacity, I do want to acknowledge what Commissioner Meredith noted, which was that historically there had been reports and there had been some concerns about the way that the Malibu community felt about the facility. I'll just speak for myself. My understanding is, at least with the current supervisor, Malibu has been a very strong partner. And so that may have been true at one time, but it is not my understanding that that is still the case. So I do think there is still an open question, at least for me, about capacity at Kilpatrick. The second thing is just a few things to acknowledge. I think there's a lot of really wonderful values in this plan. I think it's important to acknowledge that, and also to sort of recognize, for me, those values were driven by many of the community members who are here and historically community leadership in this space. And I think one of the challenges for me, having been in this space for the last 5 years, is the plan sort of presupposes that the facilities are the obstacle to achieving those values. And I will say, having visited all of these facilities and looked for the perfect facility combination in this county, it doesn't exist. And so I think we have to start asking ourselves, what is the obstacle that we're really facing? Because what I hear from you, Chief, is quite a lot of alignment with the values and the things we want to accomplish for the outcomes for young people. So a few things that I just want to note, that in addition to the facilities being sort of framed as the problem, and this global plan comes from work that we all did that recognized the massive imperfection of our facilities. That was the impetus behind a need for a global plan. But specifically for the SYTF youth, I think one challenge that we have had, and one of the guiding principles for our work on the JJRBG, has been the legislation that formed this, which specifically asks us to move and use the least restrictive environments available, which is why at that subcommittee, we have refrained from consolidating the entire SYTF population in our most restrictive facility, which is Viera J. Nydorf, or in Los Padrinos. Those are the two most restrictive
Josh,
facilities.
I'm going to
Yes.
cut you off, but I think that Commissioner Mundo may want to ask you some specific questions
So don't leave.
later. If that, no, I think leave, and then he may
I
call
mean,
you
don't
back
leave
up
this
after.
room.
Don't leave.
Right. I
Thank
want to go
you
sit
for
down, and I'll be
interpreting
over
my
there.
comment. Thank you. Mr. Pettis, welcome.
I'm totally confused. I've listened to Chief, you saying about Sunburst, Pine Grove, Step Down, LA Model, Boys Republic. But we're talking about new programs and we can't run the programs that we have. Everything hinders around safety. We have cadets who are going through their 13-week training who are quitting the moment they see Los Padrinos because of a safety issue. The nurse there, they now have escorts, so they're not stealing the drugs from the nurse. It's not quite a pleasant place, and everybody's dancing around safety, but safety deals with recruiting, it deals with promoting, it deals with longevity, it deals with retirement. Everything hinges around safety. And you asked for a recommendation. My recommendation is return the DPO2 field officers to their offices. They can do their jobs. Eliminate the 90-day rotation where officers are at home, that are at home could be at work doing the reports, much needed reports. Right now, you're paying people at work overtime to do the job that I myself could be at work right now today doing those reports. Right now, the department has me working half a year. They call it a 90-day rotation. 90 and 90 is 180. Basically, I work less than half a year. And then they're very specific when they send me home. They says, okay, you come back on December 2nd, you have to leave March 2nd. But then once I'm home, I have no idea when I'm coming back. And, you know, I'm being punished for the injury I sustained at probation. It's unbelievable. I mean, when I go home and try to tell my wife I'm at home for half a year, and she said, well, what did you do? I said, I went to work. And that was the end of that. And when we deal with the field officers, these probationers are not being supervised. There's nobody at the office. If somebody wants to come in and report, we cannot get them service. They need housing, we can't get them housing. If they need the psychiatric evaluation, we can't do that. If they need mental health, they need GPS monitoring, whatever they need that we're supposed to be providing, we're not doing that. And so you asked for a recommendation given to bring those DPO2 field officers back to the office and a limited 90-day rotation for people who are able to do their job at work.
Thank you. All right, we have one more in-person comment, and then we have 5 virtual comments. Okay, so the topic is about the global plan. Please stay with the topic. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. Yes, ma'am, stay on the topic. So I was
Just to
taking
be
some
clear,
notes.
that was not a reminder for you. It was a reminder for all the comments. I apologize if you took it that way.
Okay, again, then I will apologize. I have to speak again. I apologize. Same apology. So, Chief, 2 things. I take some notes. Number 1, I take notes that you said those kids are in that facility earn their spot there. I think that's something you said. That reminds me one thing. I was in the basketball team when I was in high school. You know, we have a tier team 1, 2, 3. So every month our team rotate. You are doing good, you move up. You are doing bad, you get down lower. So I think that is a system that we can try. You are doing good, you get better services. You are doing bad, then bad services. Second, I take some notes is about that you said preventing youth from entering the system. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of the kids I see right here, including numerous political reports, that they don't have a father. When you grew up in a family, when your mother is a criminal, when your father is a criminal, or when you don't have a mother, when you don't have a father, then 80% of the probability that you will end up in the system when you grew up in a family like that. So how do you prevent youth from entering the system? You address the issue 30 years before the kid was born. So when you are making sure that their father is a law-abiding citizen, having a job, their mother is not doing drugs, their mother is not, end up on the street or doing all those things, then most likely 70, 80%, the kids will not end up in your system, will not end up in your department. So by the time when the kid is already born, and then in a problematic family, and then you guys are trying to talk about let's provide good services for them, that is way too late. So how do you address the kids issue? You make sure you address the issue of the father and the mother, or about the grandfather and the grandmother. Then that's how you kill the cycle right there. That's my comments.
Thank you. We're going to go online. Please. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Lena. Go ahead.
Thank you. Lena Mallet with the Children's Defense Fund. It's unclear to me what this vision will achieve other than chaos, continued abuses, and sustained caging, despite promises for youth liberation inscribed in Youth Justice Reimagined. It is not clear to me how this plan will move the department closer to compliance with DOJ or BSCC mandates, and it is even less clear how youth will experience increased access to programming, consistency, or care. Knowing that the department will likely continue to face the same staffing issues it's been navigating for several years, there is no evidence at all to support that these proposed facility transitions would result in this crisis being ameliorated. Offering step-down opportunities within the confines of barbed wire fences and concrete walls is in fundamental conflict with the concept's true meaning and intent. These facility environments are carceral in nature, and no degree of creativity or structural manipulation could ever resemble home. So let them come home. Let them come back to the arms of community who are there waiting. The plan to essentially build a gender-specific juvenile hall solidifies girls' continued incarceration and is contrary to these actual needs of our GGE population. Data shows that 99% of predispositioned girls could be safely served in the community, and they are. Shout out Young Women's Freedom Center, Beloved, and others. Yet probation has chosen to override its own risk assessments to justify holding them in custody. Girls who should be free will now displace boys who have spent years working towards stability and healing at Kilpatrick. And addressing the POC's pros cons list, while many of the cons identified by the POC are factual and aligned with community provider and youth concerns, the majority of the pros are based on assumptive beliefs that rely on a healthy, compliant, and functional department. This is not the reality we're living in.
Thank you. We're going to go online and start with Lucia. Lucia, can you unmute yourself? Yes, we can hear you. You can begin.
I worked for a former CBO that no longer has been allowed to provide services, and for 4 months have not been able to get a response back from anyone in the department. So speaking with youth now through another agency, they address that even those who now got placed to the step-down units that are within Barry J are not getting provided programming as much as before and are frustrated. They've also heard about this idea about Kilpatrick being moved into Barry J, which has also made them feel like it's kind of pointless to want to do good or work better and harder because they're still going to be stuck in the Barry J facility at that location. So I do agree that maybe the youth should be spoken to there and, things clarified so that there's no misunderstanding. The programming and culture now at Kilpatrick is amazing. I've experienced it going there, and it would be a shame to take that away. And I agree with what Commissioner Harris shared today. If you have youth that are motivated to do better, like go to Kilpatrick, are given better programming once going to a step down, I assume that will trickle into a better attitude towards staff and making their job easier and safer. Like I said, there's proof there at Kilpatrick. Also to Mr. Miller and Mr. Gerard who got up in line to speak. It's amazing to see these youth advocate for themselves, sharing their experiences, and also please listen to them and also listen to your CBOs. We want to go back in there. We want to assist, even at no cost to help you guys also attain your goals. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go next to Audrina. Audrina, you can unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead and begin.
Okay. As far as programs and services, I've mentioned more than once about probation misconstruing behavior issues with a youth's disabilities and not servicing them. For years, probation has not been providing my son with the services he needs. He's left to figure out ways to channel his disabilities in a positive way without medication. One way that helps him is writing in his notebook and journaling. I brought up to his caseworker, Miss Landon, multiple times my son's disabilities, and she failed to document it or have any meetings with me to provide the department with this important information. Instead, she severed all communication ties with me and at court threw my son under the bus using his disabilities against him as behavior problems.
Audrina, do you have any comments about the global plan issue?
No, well, I mean, everyone's talking about everything different, so it's kind of confusing, but this is important as well. So, I mean, it's isn't part of the global plan, what's it called, programming?
Understood. If you want to talk about this, we can talk about it under general public comment, or you can direct your comments to the global plan.
Okay, I'll wait till general comment.
Thank you. Next up, we have a phone number, which is 310902. You're calling user number 19. You need to dial star 6.
Hi.
Yes, you can begin.
Hi, I'm glad you can hear me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to start off with thanking the gentleman that spoke so highly about probation. I know it takes courage to speak kindly when it's a pattern to only highlight the negative about the probation department. And also, if the morale is already low throughout the department, I don't think it's fair to uproot Kilpatrick staff or youth to another facility. How are you going to punish the staff or the youth that are doing an outstanding job by uprooting them? And can we use one of the camps, either Scott or Scudder, to house the girls? Maybe just use one of the camps for training. And then also, before we speak about giving our youth back to the community, I just want to kindly remind everyone that it is in their communities and their homes that they experience the trauma that led them into incarceration. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go next to Jake Smith. And we have, after Jake Smith, we have James Maddox, another call-in user 22, and Helen Eigenberg, and that will be the end of public comment on this issue. So Jake Smith, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, you can begin.
Yes, first I'd like to talk about the closure of Camp Page. It's kind of something I don't agree with, because the chief says he wants smaller group models, but he's going to take camps that are maybe at 30. Some of them are at 40 right now, and increase it to 50. And most of those kids are 707B offenders, which means they could go to SYTF. So what's going to happen is there's going to be no room. They're going to run out. And now you go with these young people that got a 9-month sentence, and now they're going to end up in SYTF with a minimum of 18-month sentence. So it kind of makes absolutely no sense on when he goes to the smaller group model, when he wants to increase it for camps. Also, the second thing I'd like to talk about is Kilpatrick. Kilpatrick is a great program, but it's so limited in the number of people it can service. You could take that same program and open Challenger up and have one side of Challenger have 8 on each side, and that can hold a lot of kids that they can service, and then the whole other side can be all for programming that they can specifically make for those kids. And the people at Sylmar should not have to step down in a facility, the same facility. It's just not a good thing. You want them to have a new environment, a place to go where they know it's going to be different. Kilpatrick isn't limited to the facility. It's limited to the actual program. And if you look, they've only had maybe like less than 10 incidents in the last year, because when they do have an incident, they hold the youth accountable and they send them back to Sylmar. The same needs to be done everywhere. Accountability in the camps aren't there. The accountability in the halls aren't there. We need to have that same attitude everywhere around, not just at Kilpatrick. Thank you.
That's your time. Thank you. We'll go to James Maddox. James, you can begin whenever you're ready.
Terrific. Thank you very much. There is a quote, "No army greater than an idea whose time has come." It's been interesting this morning to listen to the number of people who've acknowledged that the probation department is a $1 billion operation. I have proposed on many occasions, and I'll do it again, shutting it down. Take $300 million and allocate it or negotiate with either Orange or Ventura County. The balance of that money, $750 million, could be allocated to the unrealized liabilities that are highlighted in the county budget arising out of the action of probation officers who allegedly sexually assaulted children and youth. Not being a supporter of Droge or the current administration, we should look at the templates that they're using to for letters being sent to federal employees when we go about shutting down probation. The chief avoids attending the meetings. Winston Churchill said, "I no longer listen to what people say, rather I watch what they do. Behavior never lies." Not being able to get the table of organization when the table of organization is printed in the annual budget seems to be indicative of the resistance. Again, Churchill's quote, "I no longer listen to what people say, I watch what they do. Behavior never lies." Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to call-in user number 22. Your number starts with 213. You can unmute yourself by dialing stars. Yes, you can begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can begin.
Okay, my name is Jazar Holiday, and I disagree with the global plan. I'm from Youth Justice Coalition and formerly incarcerated youth. Moving youth has been disastrous in the past and traumatizing to youth. We have all already seen this tactic fail, specifically moving girls into a facility that was made from the ground up for boys. Their needs are so different. Any pauses in education, programming, essential mental health services, and related medication delivery could severely dysregulate youth in receiving treatment. This move will force youth to cope with all new facilities, new staff, youth interactions, provider schedules, etc., all of which are contrary to the most basic tenets of rehabilitation. Thank you.
Thank you. And final comment will be by Helen Eigenberg. Helen, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, you can begin.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good morning, or good afternoon, Helen Eigenberg. I just spent the morning out at Opportunity House in Westwood, and there's been a lot of talk of home-like settings. And Chief, I would encourage you, your coworker Eric Raleigh knows all about Opportunity House. If you want to see what home-like settings look like, please go visit Opportunity House. It is a court to college program. It is thriving. The youth there are thriving, and it's what we should be talking about. Putting tiny homes, which I'm very familiar with, at Barry J is not a home-like setting. Los Padrinos is not a home-like setting. Judge Espinoza was there this morning, and he stated that Opportunity House, this is the future. And I thought this should be the now. So I would encourage you, Chief, to go check out Opportunity House and even anyone on the POC, because that is home-like settings where the youth will grow and thrive and heal. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll turn back.
Okay, Chief, I understand that. Oh, there you are. That you, maybe a couple more questions from the commissioners. Commissioner Canales, Ship, followed by Terry, followed by Jackson.
Hi, okay, thank you very much. Chief, I just want to ask, because in the Board of Supervisors motion, it was, believed that you would be working with stakeholders. And as we've heard from many in the room here today, they are more than, willing to meet with you and work with you. And then there was a comment made by one of the gentlemen over there holding the line, the group over here, about the commissioners, we were not even included in the global action plan, but we have asked to be, so we would also like to be included as stakeholders. And as it is right now, as the way that it looks, just in my opinion, I think that there's so much more that we could do. The program that they mentioned, they have empty beds. The caller that just called in with the Opportunity House, which this is the first time hearing of the Opportunity House. I didn't even know about that. And then we have the fire camp in Pine Grove, and providing more opportunities for the youth. But I totally, I do not see the logic of the tiny homes. That's just it. And so my question would be, though, if we could look at revising this and including the stakeholders in the room that have asked to be included, as well as the commissioners. And since Chief Deputy Epps is no longer with you and was part of the creation of this, and then of course Sanford Rose also left the department, is there a new team working with you on this? Thank you.
Okay, so nobody has been hired as chief deputy. There's an acting chief deputy. And there will be an acting deputy director behind Rose. I think those announcements should come out, but there's been no new recruitment and new permanent folks. So we'll just have folks on the current management team, double duty and taking additional duties until we put another recruitment out. With respect to input, yes, absolutely. But I just don't want, I think there's a lot of confusion here on what the global plan is. And I think we have to go back to the beginning. This is a facilities global plan on the utilization of the sites that we have for the anticipated youth in our system. This is not there are all sorts of other efforts and requirements that have to do with how do we impact recidivism? How do we supervise people in the field? Do we have electronic monitoring? What type of recommendations are we making? Are we using the appropriate assessment tools? That's not part of the global plan. It is a facilities global plan on, I have to make a discretionary decision on what I believe the population we have to house on based on the data that we have. And then based on both the budget, the locations we have, the commitments that we have to DOJ, how we could best accomplish that and do better than what we're currently doing. So there's no disagreement that what we have is insufficient and it is the base. There's no disagreement there. I think where we're getting a little bit lost is I think folks want to put into the conversation all sorts of things that don't have to do with, I have to make a decision on what facilities are going to house whom, and then we decide how we're going to build out. So we do more than simply cosmetic changes, which is inappropriate, and we don't want to continue doing that. It's also a response to all of the things that we're required to do, which is to reimagine how we provide services for young people that came from the BOS, to come up with a solution for LP to have less population so we're more successful with the staffing component. And then there are a whole host of other considerations I have to take into account that cannot be public. The funding is transparent. I just presented the budget publicly. That's there. Everything is in there, but there are safety considerations for certain locations and why it can be used for one type of housing or not another. So some of the suggestions that say, why don't we use this facility for this? We can't, because it's a different type of facility and the infrastructure it would take to have the right security just isn't possible. So it's a long way of saying, I do want the input. I don't want to misguide people to think that the sky's the limit and we can come up with solutions that say, in LA County, we should build 24 small community. Like, that's not within my power, nor the budget, nor what's before. It's with what I have, what is the best utilization? Those are all good conversations and should be, but they're separate to this.
Thank you, Chief. And with all due respect, I mean, if there is a lack of understanding, it is also because there's been a lack of communication and availability. And I think if, maybe that door could even be opened, maybe we could address some of the issues.
Fair enough.
Commissioner Ship.
Yeah. Is that one working?
Yeah, real quickly, and I think like the commissioners touched on a bunch of my questions, so maybe just two. Well, there's no mention of Pine Grove, but I see it in the budget presentation. The DA mentioned Pine Grove, and that we don't have a lot of youth there. What is your plan around Pine Grove, and also why is it not mentioned, especially when you talk about depopulating a lot of these youth?
That's a great question. So Pine Grove is run by and funded by the state. I we're consistently trying to recruit eligible SYTF young people to go to Pine Grove. For whatever reason, we've been unsuccessful. It is a voluntary program. Recently, we've had presentations by former Pine Grove firefighters that now have full-time jobs. We've had presentation by an actor that is very involved with the youth come down. So we're actively pursuing. I think it's underutilized. I would love to see more of our young people hear about it, know about it, and go to Pine Grove. Mr. Rayleigh is currently working on what we're missing in terms of being able to motivate young people to go to it. But it's not here because it's not our program. There are beds available to us, and I agree that it's underutilized.
Okay. And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because you talk about SYTF youth specifically and how they cannot go home. The courts charge them to you, but they can go to Pine Grove, right? And what I'm hearing is like that this is a facilities plan. This is focused towards facilities, but it's also focused towards the people in these camps, right? These young girls at DKC, they were doing a lot better inside that setting. At CVK, they're doing better in that setting. So sending CVK boys across the county back to Barry J, I don't know. I think that harms them a little bit. And I think a lot of commissioners touched on it, that it's a real frustration with this plan because we are moving these boys backwards. We are sending these girls across the county, away from their families, away from credible messengers, away from providers, away from everybody that is there to help them. So it's not just a facilities plan because it's moving everything from providers to credible messengers to staff, everything, right? So, and you said you would like a real recommendation. So I'll give you a real recommendation because I feel like we are not getting to that point of it, right? My recommendation to you is decarcerate as many youth as possible who are not 707B, right? For those other youth under SB 823, they're supposed to be in least restrictive placements, less restrictive placements. They are not, because Barry J is almost like a prison, right? So for that, we need to keep as many youth out of Barry J as possible. Send them to Pine Grove, send them to Camp Kilpatrick, send them to those other two camps that you wanted to consolidate, right? For as far as those youth in Camp Kilpatrick at the moment, they can be moved to the step downs because, like you said, they earned their places to be in step downs, and Camp Kilpatrick is supposed to be that. But we should not be moving youth back to our most restrictive placement at all. And so my recommendation to you is try to decarcerate, try to move youth away from this most restrictive placement, and try to keep these youth in a place where they're accessible to providers, to staff, and people who care about them, because I think that's what's missing from this plan. And that's what community is expressing, a real concern for the youth.
Thank you.
So just to close the loop on this, what would be the formal way for people to provide the feedback? Because I do think, as many of us are touching on, there's a lack of trust. I think it takes a really long, we have to subpoena to get information that we ask for. I don't think anyone really feels confident that if we do provide the feedback, some of which has already been shared today and in this pros and cons document, that it will be meaningfully considered from community members, from current probation staff, that they'll actually have a way to say, oh, actually, this wouldn't work. I would have to be homeless in order to, because I'm not getting my salary. And I think, yeah, what's the formal way that people can share feedback? And what's the assurance that it'll be meaningfully taken? Because I think if the plan is approved for the facilities and then the feedback comes, any recommendations are now within a container. It's like, well, what's your feedback given that all these changes have to occur?
Yeah. So DYD is going to assist probation in setting up future meetings and events so that we could take feedback from the community. We're grateful that they've offered. We're taking them up on the offer. They have credibility and they'll be able to do that That'll be specifically for this, for the global plan, to be able to get that feedback. That's going to be one avenue. I think that you received the recommendation, and of course, that's your decision on putting together a work group with folks and giving that as official recommendations with respect to this. And then if the global plan moves forward, remember this is multi-year and there are different pieces. So even if it moves forward on the original pieces, there are going to be these formalized work groups for each one of the locations that are going to include the department heads that provide or their designees that provide the services. And that's also a place where we're going to figure out how to get input. So there are going to be multiple places to do that. And we do look for, again, I'm going to keep pushing on the idea that it has to be specific to what the question is at hand. There are all sorts of other issues in probation that have to do with the staffing, that have to do with all sorts of other questions that are not part of this plan. They don't go in this plan. That doesn't mean we don't want to engage in it, but in order to be productive, there's some decision points that have to be made with funding and pieces that, we have to get to those answers. Because I'll remind folks, I think we all agree that nobody is satisfied currently. And so I would hate for this to become a 5-10 year sort of project, and then the young people that need something better. That delay worries me, especially in large bureaucracies. And so I would hope that there's a way to take this input, make any necessary changes as possible, and not unnecessarily delay improvements for the conditions.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you so much. And I appreciate you, Chief, offering us some clarity around what this plan is and what it's intended to do, because I was prepared to push back because there are like meatier areas that I'm more invested in that are lacking here. And now I understand what this is. What I will say is that the plan still does feel mission averse, right? Because it's focused on beautification and infrastructure, and it feels like it's focused on those things at the expense of focusing on the real internal issues. And it's very difficult for all of us to isolate the emotions from all of it, because they're real time, real issues that affect us all every day. So I just kind of want to defend that so that you understand where some of that is coming from. I think you understand it. The home-like environment thing always kind of trips me up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm from South LA, I'm from the hood, right? And it's like most of us affected by this institution, we come from the hood. And so the concept of a home-like environment, it's like, well, when you come from a broken home, what does that even really mean? What are our neighborhoods look like? So probation's job in some respect is to help us create healthy concepts of what home is and what it's meant to be. And those things are not physical. Those things are immaterial. It's stability, it's support, it's safety, right? And so, yes, we're looking at these really lofty plans and we've got these modifications and all this construction. It abandons some of the core issues that we need right now. And so, again, very difficult to isolate these things. And so it hints at some of it in the plan, but not substantively. And we need to see more of that to buy into the other things. So I'll just leave with that.
Yeah, no, look, I don't like home-like environment as a term either. It's a term that's including in a bunch of our sort of legal documents, and it's sort of, we're stuck with it. But it sometimes it takes us further away from what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is create an environment of positive relationships. And that starts with the interactions that they have with the employees, right? That to me, when we talk about home, like, it starts there before we even talk about the physical piece. But the physical is important because it informs folks on how we value them and how they see themselves. So having something that looks like a cell and you have no time in the day to feel like a normal person that isn't being punished, that matters too. And with that respect, I think that we have to keep our eye on the ball that long term, whatever investments we're going to make, these places, they have to be safe, but they also have to allow folks to engage in safety. For example, when I insist that I need a different location for our young women, it's because in order to feel safe, where you are matters. If you're in a facility where there are other boys and you may feel in danger when you're walking to school, that sets up possibly the remainder of the day for you and where you are emotionally and whether you feel safe or not. So there's a lot behind the decisions on why we think that separation of girls, why we think that these locations matter, because it sets up our ability to do all those other things that I think you're referencing, but that aren't in here. But I get your point that them not being in here doesn't allow you to sort of take a view of the whole thing.
Just one more, because the chief has been quite generous with the extra 15 minutes.
So sorry for taking up time, but I think here. Sorry, actually I started by saying I'm sorry, and I'm actually not sorry. So I take that back. I think part of what is so frustrating with this plan is that it doesn't account for the fact that none of this can occur in a silo. And you've created something that exists purely in a silo and that does nothing to meet the actual needs of young people, which I think is inherent in your mission and your intention. So this whole thing falls flat. There's no indication that any young person is interested in a small home Sunburst Academy replication. So that feels like it could potentially be a waste of money. There's no indication that the girls and gender expansive youth at Dorothy Kirby Center, their needs are not being met. There's no indication that consolidating Camps Page population into Camp Afflerbach and Rocky is going to result in anything better for these young people. In fact, you have a union that was celebrating your resignation in December, at least per Mr. Ford's letter to his staff. You have staff here who are saying they're deeply frustrated with you and the things that you have done. You have a DOJ settlement that that demands you to come into compliance with staffing. You have a BSCC mandate that states that you are out of compliance with staffing. And so while I understand that you were charged with coming up with a global plan, and when looking back at that motion, it actually primarily related to SYTFs, it does nothing to address what is at the core. All of these things are relational. And so it just feels like we're speaking in a vacuum. And so when we have folks here talking about decarceration and the way to meaningfully do that, and when we have folks talking about the fact that LAD scores indicate young people should be released, but you have staff that are overriding that, it is all directly related to the facilities that you actually need to house these young people and whether or not you even need them. To create a cop city out of Camp Scott and Scudder, an indoor firing range? Do any of your probation officers carry guns? I certainly hope not. It falls so flat. That's, I guess I'm not asking a question, but just stating, I think, what many people are feeling.
No, I think we're done. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move to agenda item number 6.